everyone. First of all, what I want to do on this stream is talk about my journey with Anki. I believe I've mentioned it on stream. Not just, I've even added some cards and stuff, but I never really went into detail as to what it even is and why I use it. So let's do exactly that right now. So first of all, what is Anki? It's the best program slash software slash I don't know what app, I guess, to ensure that certain information is stored in your memory for the long term. Anki can also be used to quickly remember something for some time and then forget it. You can technically, but I never have. The main idea is that you have some information that you want to remember forever, and Anki uses the most efficient algorithm to ensure that you do. And if you want to have a more in-depth review on how it works, I have a video for that. Well, actually, this time not me, but instead someone else who has made a very good tutorial on how to use AutoHotkey properly. So that's for if after me talking about it you get interested, that's where you should go. Okay, so in Anki you have decks that you can create so that you can store your cards into them. Then say here you go into a deck, you have one new card, boom, you study it. Either you're incorrect, you press again, you're correct, you press good, and there is also hard and easy. Once you deal with this card, depending on your answer, it will appear in a different amount of time. So if you fail the card, you pressed again, by default it will show up again in 10 minutes. And it will continue doing that until you press good, and in that case it appears, I'm pretty sure, on the next day by default. But the reason I'm saying I think by default is because obviously I have changed that default. So let's look at what my default is. It's very similar, almost identical to be honest, to the one suggested by this video. Actually, this is not a good example because of different settings. Okay, so here are my settings for 28 decks, as you can see. Yeah, I think it's better if I just show you my settings. And then once you understand what those mean by watching that video, you can either decide to copy or not. What is FSRS? The free space repetition scheduler is an alternative by more accurately determining where you fuck, why am I so bad at reading? When you are likely to forget, it can help you remember more material in the same amount of time. The settings is shared by all decked presets. If you previously used the custom scheduling version of this, please make sure you clear out the custom scheduling section before enabling this option. I think this is new. I haven't seen it. Yeah. Desired retention. Oh, interesting. Let's discover this. This is new to me. Desired retention. The default value of 0.9 will schedule cards, so you have a 90% chance of remembering them when they come up for review again. If you increase this value, Anki will show cards more frequently to increase the chances of you remembering them. If you decrease the value, Anki will show cards less frequently, and you will forget more of them. Be conservative when adjusting this. Higher values will greatly increase your workload, and lower values can be demoralizing when you forget a lot of material. So the 90% number is actually a very important number, and it's floating in the Anki community for a while now. 90% is what you should be aiming for, pressing the good button. Like 9 out of 10 cards should be good. If it's more than them, maybe you're seeing them too often, and if it's less than them, maybe too rarely. And 10%, like just not getting 1 in 10 cards sounds kind of like, what? Really? But it seems like it's the most efficient. It's like the number that always comes up. Okay, yeah, so I'm not going to change it. SM2 retention, what is that? If your actual retention before switching to was significantly different from adjusting this value will allow Anki to better estimate your memory state when it encounters cards that are missing in review logs. Since review logs typically won't be missing unless you explicitly deleted them to free up space, most users will not need to adjust this. I guess we won't. So this I'll trust. The default is probably good. Reschedule cards on change. What does this mean? This option controls whether the due dates of cards will be changed when you enable FSRS or optimize the parameters. The default is not to reschedule cards. Future reviews will use the new scheduling, but there will be no immediate change to your workload. If rescheduling is enabled, the due dates of cards will be changed. That might possibly just forget every card. I doubt that it will, but I'm not entirely sure what that implies, so I won't. Actually, let's try it. Depending on your desired retention, this can result in a large number of cards becoming due, so it is not recommended when first switching from SM2. Oh, so the previous way it did it was SM2. This can result in a large number of cards becoming due. It is not recommended. Well, the thing is, why is this not scrolling? Oh, because I have this open. I will need to show you. Basically, I spent an hour on Anki today. And I've been spending an hour every day for quite some time. So I don't think this is a huge issue. Optimize FSRS parameters. I don't think we need to do that. Compute optimal retention. Deck size. What does that mean? Nothing, I guess. What? Yo. That is weird. Can you show me the thing that explains it? What the fuck? Deck size? What does this mean? What does this mean? Days to simulate? What does this mean? Please explain. What? Okay, so deck size is that it does not explain it here. I mean, this is pretty obvious, but I want to know the specifics. Compute optimal retention. Okay, let's save. Now let's see what changes. So, a few mature cards popped out of here, but nothing else, so my workload hasn't like increased significantly. Okay, let's continue talking more generally about Anki, but this is a cool feature. I feel like it has been made to make you worry less about optimizing settings, which is very much a good thing. So, about my overall experience with Anki. I know that spending an hour a day on something, that sounds scary, but the only reason that can happen to me is because I'm memorizing all NPC interactions from Terraria, and also crafting every single potion. Then shimmer transmutations, most of them, like the useful ones from Terraria. These are pretty easy, they don't take up that much time. My decks for programming. I am memorizing Morse code. I have a bunch of decks for hotkeys, and they're very easy, especially by comparison. And the reason why these exist, it's not that it's difficult necessarily to remember hotkeys, but it's difficult to remember them to an extent where you're ready to actively use them. So say there's some program in the terminal and it has some hotkey. So for example, Zathura, right? It has a hotkey for dual page mode, which by default is just D. I remapped it and now it's Control D. So the thing is, when I read a PDF, I will most likely just be using single page mode. So I may have discovered this hotkey and even set it, but a lot of time down the line, I might actually want to use it for the first time, but at that point I would have forgotten because I didn't need it for so long. With Anki, what I can do is continue keeping it in my long-term memory so that if I ever need that feature, I can easily remember it. And that is amazing. Same thing goes for Spotify, for example. It has one hotkey, which for now I don't see as that useful. It's the search in your library hotkey, which is Control-Alt-F. Yeah. So the thing about that hotkey is that, well, let me actually just show you. Let's go to Spotify. So I have 50 playlists, and these two, we can Control-Alt-F once we're on Spotify. Wait, am I wrong or something? Maybe I need to click specifically, like, hey, I'm here. Oh, I was in the search box of this. Okay, that explains it. And we can do something like 42. Which I don't really consider that useful right now, because what I want to do is just go to the bottom and click the oldest, I guess, playlist. But what if my workflow changes? Well, in that case, I can very easily consider using this new hotkey that I've been remembering this entire time, and will come naturally and expand my horizons onto what features I can even use, when otherwise that might not have been the case. I might have thought, oh, I can't do it this way because it's inconvenient that way, you know? But with knowing more hotkeys overall, my toolset increases in amount and quality. So remembering hotkeys is actually very good. Something that I've done is add like cards for grommet, the thing that I use to draw on my screen. So I have a couple of colors, and I could remember them to a degree, but I wasn't sure on them. But thanks to Anki, I can now way more easily know which color is which modifier, which I couldn't do before, and I was always and only using pink because I wasn't sure which color is going to pop up. Now I'm quite sure. So using Anki to remember hotkeys specifically is also helpful to not just ensure you remember them, but also to have confidence, I guess, in them. So you will never feel like, is it this hotkey? You'll always know which actual hotkey it is. I also started memorizing hex codes for colors that I use, and Unicodes of emojis that I use. So, so hex, Morse, and the Terraria thingies, those are what take up the most of my time. If I wasn't this ridiculous and just tried remembering, I guess, more useful information, or information that makes more sense to actually remember, this wouldn't be an hour a day. So my experience has been incredibly positive, and slowly but surely I'm starting to memorize well the Morse code, which never really is important until it is. You'll see some meme, and this has happened to me recently, where I saw a meme in Morse code, but at that point I only memorized like 1 or 2 characters, if even, and it fucking sucks, because it would be so cool to be able to just understand this meme in Morse code without having to like cross-reference. That feels so satisfying. And sure, maybe this situation doesn't matter to you, but what if you're in a situation that's more extreme? Sure, I don't go outside really at all, but what if I suddenly found myself in a situation where my only way to like save my life, for example, is to talk to someone in binary, so in Morse code? Well, fuck, knowing Morse code will save my life. You may say that I'm stretching here, and you would be kind of correct, but still, this cool little thingy that you can spend a few times a day on, like, if you're not trying to remember a lot of stuff, it's really just going to be a few minutes. It's quite up to you, because you can decide how many new cards you get in a day. And if you set like, oh, I only have the Morse code deck, and only 1 per day that you add as new, then yeah, it's going to be just a few minutes per day, and then eventually you will have memorized Morse code entirely. And then, as it goes, it will show you those cards more and more rarely, up to an interval of 100 years, interestingly. Imagine your card goes to repeat in 100 years and you fucking see it ever again. That would be kind of cool, and I believe that we will be in a future where that can happen. So this not much effort possibly paying off to such a degree, that is amazing. And Anki is even more incredible if you actually need to remember or memorize a lot of info. Maybe you're in school or in university. Anki is perfect, and I strongly believe that you'll perform better than people who don't know about Anki, because that has been my experience like 3 or 4, maybe even 5 years ago, when I was using Anki to prepare for exams, to a degree. I didn't put that much effort into it, I guess. And, well, I did put in effort, I just started way too late. Still passed, though. And also was using Anki for learning Spanish, which to this day, I'm flabbergasted at my willpower, because I never liked Spanish. I never liked Spanish culture, music, media, the language itself I wasn't like insane about. Yet I was learning Spanish with intensity for an entire year, if not more. Why was I doing that? Well, my dream was to move to Spain, but not even because I like Spain. As I just said, I don't. I really don't care. But because I heard somewhere that it's kinda maybe easy to move there. So I wasn't even sure. And I was learning a language I don't like for a year. It's so insane. But then again, I also use Lua. I don't like that language either. Oh well. Yeah, so from there, that's when I discovered Anki, when I was also learning Japanese, actually, now that I remember. Um, yeah, in a situation kind of like that, when you're learning languages or preparing for exams, Anki is perfect. But don't start late, because in that case it will be kind of useless. Maybe not useless, maybe it's still going to be more efficient, and probably. But starting early is going to help you out a lot. And usually, starting early when it comes to studies is something that I personally never want to do, because, like, I don't want to do anything yet. I still have time, right? That's what you always say to yourself, and until you recognize that you no longer have time. Um, but with Anki, there's no rush really. You just add cards, and then day by day you slowly see them, you learn about them, and they go into your long-term memory in a very efficient way, where you're spending the least amount of time to be the most efficient about remembering stuff. So yeah, in that case, starting early just makes sense, and it's not a huge commitment, because it's like one card a day, for example, or however many you have. So the earlier you start, the better you are, obviously. If I, for some reason, needed to memorize more as soon as possible, or until a certain deadline, it would be quite a bit more difficult. But right now it's just set to be 2 new cards per day, same as Hex, same as NPCs, but I didn't do it at first, which I am now recognizing was a mistake. Yeah. There are other stuff, like remembering stuff related to the shell. We could press B to go into the browser and go to shell. I recently added a bunch of stuff about fish shell, so more specifically the test built-in. I'm unsure how much it deviates from, like, the GNU utility test. Maybe it's identical, I don't know, but I'm more specifically talking about the test built-in of fish shell. I did a bunch of stuff from there because I keep being like unsure about test, the how to compare numbers and strings, and a lot of other stuff which I plainly just didn't know about. So I'm both learning about new stuff and making, I think, type of knowledge into foundational knowledge that I'm actually sure about. As well as putting some commands that I want to remember. For example, journal ctl-u. In this case, I want to remember what the -u flag does in journal ctl. And then in the future, when I need it, it's just going to be in my memory, easy to be used at once. Rather than you read the help page, you see -u, oh, it's like from a specific unit, I get it. And then you forget about it, because I personally don't need to use journal CTL that often. I've used it twice, I think, so far. So there's no way I'm going to... Okay, maybe I remember -u, right? But what if I end up forgetting -b, which is even more important? Okay, maybe -u and -b I remembered because they're very, like, helpful. What if I remember -g? Sure, I could, like, pipe into ripgrep, but that's less efficient. Or maybe I could forget all three. See, I don't know really what I'm going to forget and what I'm not going to forget. Or maybe forgetting some important details about some flag. I might remember what it does overall, but forget a very important detail. Well, if I just create a card on Anki, I don't really have to worry about it. I don't have to measure up whether I'm going to forget, because I'm just not going to. What Anki is also useful for is, say you implement a new feature for your shell, for your environment, for somewhere, and it's new to you, it's a new concept maybe even, and you want to foundationalize it once again, and you want to remember that it exists so you can consistently actually use it. So for example, I forgot about an abbreviation that I made called this, and actually I want to talk about a more recent one, and let me remember where it is. I can just search for it here. Boom. Yeah, so Toco, it's an abbreviation in Fish Shell that I've created quite a long time ago, but I forgot that it exists. Well, I remembered that it exists, but it was like in background memory, you know? It never came into front memory where I would actually use it. And what I would end up doing is just like touch blah blah blah, and then I would go to VS Code and open it here. That's not a big deal, however, it is still better to create a file and open it in VS Code at the same time, like I'm doing here. And since it's such a small thing that isn't that useful that I instantly remember it forever, it's a nice card to add to Anki so I actually remember about its existence. Like, okay, I need to create a new file and open it in VS Code. Oh, I have to use Toco because it's like a bit better. Yeah, so that's my overall experience with Anki and how I find it very useful for a couple of, I guess you could call them subjects, that I haven't seen people consider to use Anki for. I guess not everyone is autistic, to be fair. To be fucking remembering hex codes, all the NPC interactions. I'm still flabbergasted myself that I actually decided to do that, memorizing hex codes or Morse codes and hotkeys, but maybe I'm not the only one that considers it to be very nice. So if you're interested, definitely check out Anki. It's free and open source software, obviously, written in Qt, which apparently is a good thing. I'm not very experienced with Qt versus GTK, but as far as I heard, Qt is better than GTK overall, in a similar fashion that KDE is overall better than GNOME, but I've also heard that GNOME has been getting better. Probably not to a degree where I would actually want to actively use it though. Because KDE is way easier to like hack some feature into it because of, well, the configurability and being able to set hotkeys to commands. That is so huge, and I hope that my next desktop environment, but probably window manager, is going to have something of that nature, because if it doesn't, that would be like a shame. That would be very much a shame. Okay, next thing that I want to show you is, let's open YouTube like this. Really? That doesn't work like that? Oh no, it does. Oh, okay. I changed a bit of CSS on YouTube, so it looks a bit different. I've done most of my CSS for YouTube exactly there. Lamau. So when I click this, now there is no header whatsoever, and there are other options like sign out, which I pressed many times by accident. It's never something that I actually want to do. Never! But yet it's so close to switch account, which is something that I do constantly. It's a very annoying placement. I'm not sure why it's not something like here. Then there were other stuff like Google account, which I also don't care about, and some other stuff which I'm now not remembering. And at the bottom, after settings, there were like help and send feedback, which I also don't care about. So I removed quite a bit of elements here, and now the first one is just switch account, and I'm going to press it. Now there are no PFPs, which I can't see anyway, beside my accounts. So this way, the hidden accounts that I specifically don't want you to see, they're just nothing here. As far as either of us know, they're just like clickable buttons, but with no information on them. I remember which is which, but yeah, that's all the information that's there, which I find kind of cool. Like, I don't know. Overall, a more minimal menu. And if you want to look at my changes, they should be in YouTube domain. So let's YR, so we can copy relative path, and then we do GLF this, and copy this, boom. So this is the most recent commit, and the VOD watchers, by the time you watch this VOD, there is a big chance that that file already doesn't exist. So for you, I'll, whoops, for you, I will give you a link to the commit at the creation of this stream, you know? So let's also copy this and boom to chat. Nice thing about this is that the chat is accessible both to stream watchers and to VOD watchers. So it's like a very convenient place to just give information into. Okay, and I did a few changes on Discord, which I was starting to do on the last stream, but got incredibly annoyed by all the people fucking scrambling around in my house, which is why I ended last stream. I find it weird that it goes away without scrolling. You feel me? That's suspicious. Surely it's not an actual problem, right? Let me check. In a second. I don't think so. Well, okay, so what did I do on Discord? One thing that I've always noticed is how big this menu, along with this menu, have always been. By big, I mean like in height, I guess you would say. But I guess this is more so width, although it's like horizontal. That always bugged me. It's like a bit too big. So I made them a bit smaller. So they look a bit more minimal now. And I love how like this input box relates to the like, I guess, borders. I think it looks better than the default quite a bit. Also, I removed a few buttons here. Some of them I never used, but maybe they're useful. One of them is the notification button, which is just this, I think. The second one is show members, but you can just press Ctrl U to do the same thing. And I wanted to remove this because there's a hotkey for this as well. You can press Ctrl I. But if you remove the button, the hotkey doesn't work either, so I just couldn't remove it because I actually use this feature from time to time. When I try to go to the ping, and Discord is too stupid to actually do it, and like under scrolls or over scrolls, it's very annoying that it does that, to be fair. Then I never use GIFs, and especially not stickers, so I removed those buttons and moved this button a bit more to the right so it wouldn't feel like that far away from the edge. And I moved this one a bit more to the left. I removed the white dots next to servers because servers most often, if not always, are going to be unread, and either having to set every server to mute, which doesn't make sense if you like set all of them to mute, or maybe you just keep on clicking mark as read. Well, I mean, what's the point of that if you're not reading them really, you know? So I decided to just remove them, so I'm not as, I guess, worried about them. Trying to remember if I did anything else here. I don't think so. At the very least, I don't remember. So those changes are also public. I keep opening this file, but it's not. Oops. Yeah, so this one. Let me give you a link for that as well. So ggl f boom. And the same idea, the most recent commit and the not so recent commit, or rather at the time of recording it's the commit, the latest one, but won't be in the future. You feel me? Boom. Okay. Ooh, and I want to teach you how to remap keys on Linux. It's a pretty basic thing, and you'll probably see it in your first search result when you try to Google for this information, but I want to show it off regardless. My throat is getting so dry for no reason. It's super annoying. It's like I'm just breathing in sand. Okay. It is in tech. So these are the 3 commands that you're supposed to use, and I wonder if I can just copy and paste them to chat. Yeah, I can. So what are we doing here? First of all, we are making a backup, and any time when you're trying to edit a suspicious file, make a backup. Super important. Then we go and edit a suspicious file. And let's do exactly that. We won't actually change anything there, which is why I'm not making a backup. So we do sudo your editor and this file. I remember this to not show you my sudo password like I did in the past. Okay, so this file contains all of the key maps pretty much of your keyboard, and you can see here that I already remapped one of the keys. So by default, this line will say escape, or key escape is escape, spelled exactly like you think it is spelled. But I just recently remapped escape to be delete instead, because I remapped caps lock to be escape, but on KDE level rather than this file. And maybe I should remap it here too, but I'm unsure. I haven't really needed it, and I'm not sure of the repercussions. I doubt there will be any, but I'm not sure about that decision yet. Yeah, so since caps lock has been working as escape for a while now, I don't actually need the escape key, so I decided to make it a bit more useful. And that's exactly how we do it. So my situation was, it was escape, and I wanted it to be delete. Now, how do you figure out how any key is actually spelled? You go and try to find its name in this exact file, like in the brackets. So it was somewhere here. Yeah, here it is. We can see key dele is delete. And you can confirm that, oh, okay, so that's how you spell it. You go to your key, you change it, and boom. And then you can press capital Z to save, but I don't want to. And after that, you execute this command. Now you might say, well, hold up. I'm changing something there, and I'm not sure that I should. So that was my thought, because I copied this command, but I didn't leave a comment as to why we're deleting something in the varlib directory. Sounds suspicious, right? So that's why I went to it to figure out what's even there. And nothing is there. But the last time I checked, it had a README file that read something along the lines of programs should not depend on any files being here. They should store them somewhere else instead, because any program can potentially delete files here. Basically explaining that they're all temporary and don't trust them. So I'm guessing what this command is important for is to remove this temporary file so you can refresh basically your new keybinds. But even though you do that, I'm pretty sure you still have to reboot, because before I rebooted, the key map didn't work, but once I did, it started to. So I think that is kind of like a requirement. Yeah, and I feel like I should remember this as well. Is that a good idea? So making a backup is just makes sense to do. Like, yeah, no shit, create a backup. And this seemingly, I might be just wrong on this, by the way. Don't particularly trust me on this, but I think it doesn't matter whether you remove that or not. If you restart, it probably works still. I'm not sure, so it's not necessarily important to remember. So all I really need to do is remember this path. And we can change to shell in terms of the deck and paste this here. So this card that I'm creating right now will be a type card. Once I come across it and we'll need to review it, I actually need to type this out. So that way I can be sure I'm correct. Rather than, oh, I'm somewhat remembering what it is, but it's very cloudy, and I can't ensure that I actually remember it. Now, to be fair, typing all of this out myself in the shell would be torture. It's like entirely too much. I usually don't type out paths to this degree, but when I'm reviewing cards, it's a very different purpose for typing all of this in. It's for remembering specifically. So here I'm more fine with it. So, what's the path of the file that contains your key maps? I press Ctrl Enter, boom, that's a new card. We can actually go and look at it, I'm pretty sure. No, we can't, because I already consumed all of the new files today. Damn, why is it so dry in my room? That's insane. It's so incredibly dry. Okay, let me spray some water on a cloth and put it on my, what's it called? Radiator. It's a very ghetto solution, I get it, but it actually kind of works. I do wish I had, like, a humidifier, though. The thing about it, though, is that most of the time you don't need it, and once you do, you start wanting to buy it, but since I don't have money, like, by the time I get money to buy it, I already don't need it, and it's like an endless cycle. I'm gonna tell you a funny story. One time, in my previous apartment, my radiator exploded. That was very scary. And it started pouring boiling water all around the room. Dark, boiling water. I was in complete shock because holy shit. But I wasn't in shock enough to not immediately start saving my tech. Everything survived. Even my vape that fell into the black boiling water survived. It just needed to like stand on a desk for some time and then it got fixed magically. I'm still flabbergasted at it. If that's a good ad for you, for that specific vape, if you already do, it's Pasito. The first one, like the original. Insane. And you know what broke? The fucking water humidifier. The thing that sprays water and is supposed to be good at it died from water. Not the laptop, not the phone, vape, the fucking power outlet, the one that you like plug into your wall. It was literally like it was in water, yet it still continued to work after. Everything worked except the fucking water humidifier. It is ridiculous. Yeah, I think I showed off everything that I wanted to. I'm starting to realize I haven't been wanting to stream recently. I recognize that I very much should because I remember this being a fun experience, but for some reason I can't really bring myself to it. And I can't really fully understand why I don't want to anymore. And I think it's because I recognize just how much more efficient I am and more mentally healthy when I'm using the Pomodoro timer and doing things by myself without having to speak. It's actually very difficult to speak for me. Most of the day I'm silent, completely silent. So I found if I'm actually doing something where I need to use my brain, I will be overall better off just staying by myself. But I guess when I have already done a bunch of things and now I want to show off them, to be honest, I don't even want to do that much for some reason. Oh fuck, this is depressing to realize. I think I got so used to nobody being interested in my special interests that I just got used to shut up. And now I don't need as much to talk about them. I guess, yeah, that's why. That's depressing. Well, yeah, I guess that's the reason. But yeah, I could use streams to talk about things that I already did and give you an overview of what you could possibly do as well. Like today, showing you Anki and how it can be practically useful, rather than my previous approach to streaming where I figure something out with you. It's not really the approach that I want anymore, I think. Well, thank you for watching.